Scorch, hey, come on! Scorch!
Gary?
Oh, it's good to see you.
Huh?
Are you okay?
Of course I am. Nothing can stop Scorch Supernova. Ow! Ow!
Have you ever faced something that was inevitably hopeless? Okay, maybe not as hopeless as this guy, but something that would put you in a situation where you gotta reevaluate if all that hard work put into it can justify the end result. Imagine spending years and money onto something that's just been giving you more struggle than reward, and the more time and resource you put into it, the harder it becomes to let go. Yes, the enthusiasm of never giving up is always good and can often be worth it, but eventually you have to stop and ultimately consider if the ends justify the means. This is why many movies ultimately end up getting canceled and never see the light of day. While it sucks when a good idea gets wasted, sometimes it's for the best if the filmmakers can't think up of an execution that's equally as great as the concept. Of course, we've all heard of those tales of how a movie's production went through hell and back to end up becoming a legendary success. Everybody loves a good comeback story. But what if the movie ended up becoming a waste of time for everyone? I'm sure this has happened plenty of times in Hollywood where executives and creatives have to brutally fight each other non-stop just to have the movie become a failure in every way, and resulting the entire torturous process of making it absolutely pointless. In Hollywood, there is no better example of this than the 2013 animated feature Escape from Planet Earth. On the surface, it may seem like your typically bland alien cartoon, but deep within its forgettable kitty fodder core lies an unfortunate story that tells the nightmare that many had to suffer through in order to have this movie exist, including never-ending conflicts with the studio, many that got kicked out, even those at the top, a script that had to be written at least 17 times, and even a $50 million lawsuit. And all this to give us what?
You've got to forgive those guys. They got no manners.
Because I'm sure all those gross out gags really do justify all those painful years and millions of dollars thrown into it. So, what did these filmmakers had to go through to make Escape from Planet Earth? Well, let's find out. Our story begins with a rambunctious filmmaker named Tony Leach, who was fresh out from an animated film that he was heavily involved with as a writer, editor, and co-director, Hoodwinked, which is a surprisingly massive hit by earning $110 million on a budget of less than $8 million. It was one of the first movies to be distributed by the newly found Weinstein Company, run by two of the biggest movie moguls at the time, Harvey and Bob Weinstein. Obviously, Hoodwinked gave Leach and the team behind the film a good relationship with the Hollywood giants, and were not hesitant to propose another idea for an animated film. This time, Tony got an idea for a Prison Break movie, but not just any Prison Break movie. It was one that starred aliens trying to get out of Area 51. So on January 8th, 2006, Leach and Hoodwinked director Corey Edwards approached Harvey Weinstein with this new film, and they settled on an agreement where the duo would get $1 million each to write the picture and an extra $1 million for Leach to direct it. The agreement also stated fees for the producers, which them and Tony and Corey are dubbed the creative team, and would also get a significant cut of the movie's profits, including 20% of the gross earnings. After a few months to write an initial script, Harvey agreed on the deal in August and greenlit the project as Escape from Planet Earth, scheduled to be ready for January 14th, 2009, and marked as the Weinstein's first animated feature from scratch. Beforehand, they were never involved in the process of actually making an animated film. They would just pick one up that's already finished, add celebrity voices, modify it a bit, and then distribute it for the North American market and beyond, just like they did with Hoodwinked. But for the most part, when I say modify it, I mean completely ruin it by cramming in so much useless voiceovers and cringy pop culture references. Case in point, look at what they did with The Thief and the Cobbler and Dougal. When looking for a studio, they settled to have Mainframe Entertainment to make the animation for the movie. But right at that time, the company was going through a big change. Mainframe was purchased by Rainmaker and turned into Rainmaker Entertainment, which is a subsidiary of Escape Productions, and thus begins the everlasting nightmare of this movie's production. As I've said before, this is Harvey and Bob Weinstein's first animated film they had to produce from scratch. You'll see throughout this story that they have this continuous theme of having literally no understanding of how the animation process works, and that they believe that everything can be changed in a snap. The first of these instances was when Bob sent the creative team a note asking if they could add a boy character onto the story, which immediately threw a wrench onto the script. Following afterwards, these types of notes that would heavily alter the plot kept continuously coming one after another onto Leach and Edwards, and Tony had no choice but to abide their wishes in order to keep them happy. Throughout his time working on the feature, it was claimed that Leach had to write at least 17 versions of the script. So for a good while, the crew did not have a script locked in for them to visually bring it to life. And without a locked script, it resulted in a chaotic financial domino effect that no one could stop. Or at least, no one wanted to stop. One of the producers, Brian Innerfelt, noticed that while the script was being worked on with Weinstein's notes, Rainmaker was sucking up the Weinstein Company's money that was meant for the movie's budget, meaning that Rainmaker was paying their approximately 250 employees working on the film to do absolutely nothing. Or, what's most likely the case, they've made some work for the film, but with the constant changes in the script, it would most likely not be used anyways. Innerfelt tried to push Rainmaker to stop production to save money until a locked script has been in place, but they don't care. They're more than happy to sit back and get some easy money out of the Weinstein Company. And surprisingly, even Weinstein didn't care either because they don't know what they're doing. If they're giving them money, it must mean production is still happening on the film, right? That was the point when Brian tried to convince Harvey that maybe going to another studio would be best, especially for the sake of saving money. Maybe move the animation to Real Effects Entertainment in Texas, maybe Digital Dimensions in Ontario, but nope, the deal was with Rainmaker, so they'll stick with Rainmaker. So there really was nothing he could do. In terms of how much was lost from this, at this point, the company probably should have spent around $9 million on the production. In actuality, there was $19 million already used. $19 million of the movie's budget already spent just on a whole crew of animators working on stuff that wouldn't be used anyways, while the script was continuously changing. See how bad it can be when the executives don't know how animation works? As Innerfelt continuously tried to make them stop, it wouldn't be until the fall of 2008 when he finally put the production to a halt and properly discussed about how to move forward with the movie. They talked about the right steps, what budget they could put into it, and what priorities to put on top before settling on an animation studio and co-financer to be involved with this. Obviously, by this point, the release schedule had to be pulled out as well until they know what they were doing so that they could have a fixed date to put it out. And so, from the end of October 2008 to June of 2009, the creative team all got together to incorporate all of Weinstein's notes to make a potentially locked script and prepared a story reel to help convince the Weinsteins to give their approval. It took a while to get their attention afterwards, but they managed to create a meeting where the creative team, Harvey Weinstein, and their kids all got together to watch the story reel. So far, things seem to finally go according to plan. That is, if Harvey was even paying attention in the first place. During that screening, it was reported that Harvey was doing one of two things, either completely falling asleep or eating M&Ms, which he shouldn't since he's diabetic. An executive tried to take the M&Ms away for the sake of his health, but Harvey had to fight for it, and they all end up being scattered all across the floor, which he then proceeded to get on his hands and knees and desperately try to eat as many M&Ms as he can find off of the floor, like he was just down there like, I don't know which one of this moment tells me more, that the story reel was so bad or that Harvey Weinstein was always a lunatic. Or most likely both. But miraculously, even with Harvey's insanity, the meeting actually worked. The creative team received a few notes from the executives on what to improve on the story, and once they were implemented, the script could finally be locked and they can move forward to the animation and even casting. At last, Escape from Planet Earth can finally be made! They have a story to work with! But let's not celebrate just yet. Harvey is still as insane as ever. After the creative team started to move forward, Harvey sent his own notes on what he thought needed to change, including the entire design of the aliens because he felt like they were too similar to the ones from an animated film that was soon to be released at the time, Planet 51. That, and he wanted more family elements implemented onto the feature, meaning that more rewrites had to be made. Again. But then things got even worse when Harvey brought on board Craig Mazin, who was part of the writing team of Scary Movie 3 and 4, and later the creator of the Chernobyl miniseries, to create a new outline for the feature. For people like Leach and Interfeld, this was like a slap to the face. It was like they thought that they were so close to moving forward, then Harvey brought this guy to make everyone go back to square one. And what's worse, Harvey paid Mazin $150,000 for the new outline, while the creative team was still owed money that was a part of their deal. Oh, and did I forget to mention that out of all the spendings the Weinstein Company has done, especially towards Rainmaker for nothing, they didn't even bother to fully pay the producers and creatives what they were due. But it wasn't just Harvey they had to deal with. At the same time, Bob was also throwing out crazy notes made to completely alter the story. The notes were getting so out of hand that it even caused a feud between the brothers. It was so heated, in fact, that Harvey had to kick out Bob from the movie's production. However, that didn't stop Bob from sending more notes and have nothing resolved. Okay, we can't just lament on the writing forever. There has to be some advancement on other factors if the movie ever wants to see the light of day. So let's get into the casting and see how the Weinsteins messed that up. On August 2009, the creative team met up with the Weinstein Company to discuss about potential casting. Harvey suggested for the role of Scorched Supernova to be played by either Alec Baldwin or William Shatner, but Leach and Interfeld were not so keen on either ideas. One, they felt like Baldwin would be more suitable to play the villain, Agent Shanker, and two, having Shatner as Scorch would make him too similar to Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story. But did Harvey care about what they said? Of course not! He decided to go and make his own casting choices where he succeeded at getting no one. However, the producers actually had better luck in getting people, including Kevin Bacon as Agent Shanker, Jessica Alba as the leading lady, Kira, and Greg Kinnear as the protagonist, Gary. But did Harvey care about what they did? Of course not! He decided to go and recast everyone, even if those actors were already paid up front. An example of what I mean is that Kevin Bacon was paid $50,000 to be in the movie, but then Weinstein paid him an additional $25,000 to not be involved, meaning that Kevin Bacon made the easiest $75,000 of his life, and once again, the Weinstein Company was spending on the movie's budget for absolutely nothing! Meanwhile, back onto the script at the start of 2010, now with many rewrites done, the notes began to be more complex as the Weinsteins demanded to bring back elements from previous versions of the script. Leach would be on his 15th rewrite, and either Bob or Harvey would be like, why can't you have that thing like in the 8th script? Why isn't there that part like in the 10th version? How come you took out that bit from the 5th script? To make matters worse, Leach's reputation among the production was in a downward spiral, as the company was pinning the blame on him for not having the script locked, and rumors floated around that he could be replaced. However, unsurprisingly, the budget inevitably dried up, and the Weinstein Company made things go bad to worse for the creative team. The company went to get some fresh capital at JTM Escape Company in exchange for a mortgage on the copyright of Escape from Planet Earth. But in order to pay them back, they weren't intending to use their money, but instead, they pay with the creators' team money. As the Weinsteins were already in debt to pay the producers and creatives because of their agreement, the company used that against them by stating that they will agree to pay what they are owed in exchange for sacrificing most, if not all their share of the movie's profits. The creative team knew very well that this was a full-on dirty trick, and flat out told them no. And at that point, the Weinstein Company just said, all right, if we can't agree, then you're out! On August 24th, 2010, Tony Leach was fired from his position on Escape from Planet Earth, and the rest of the creatives and producers were removed afterwards. In the meantime, Weinstein hired Adam Klein to write a new script, while they were also looking for a new director. After 4 years of trying to bring his idea of an alien prison break movie to life, Leach's career felt like it was shut down by Weinstein. But he knew that it wasn't his fault, and so did Brian Innerfeld. They knew that the companies they tried to work for sabotaged the project and didn't follow the rules, and they decided to take action. So at the start of 2011, Leach and Innerfeld sued the Weinstein Company, Rainmaker Entertainment, Escape Productions, and JTM Escape Company for breach of contract, breach of covenant of good faith and fair dealing, rescission, injunction, quantum meruit, declaratory judgment, tortious interference with contract, and negligence, all of which amounted to $50 million. Allegedly, the Weinstein Company tried to pay them $500,000 to keep the lawsuit quiet so that it doesn't interfere with the Academy Awards, since at the time, one of their movies, The King's Speech, was and eventually became a serious competitor for several Oscars. Now, before I continue, I'd like to point out that most of the information I've given out so far had been from Leach and Innerfeld's court document against the big companies, meaning that this all came from just one side of the story, and what I've told you could be more biased than truthful. So take this all with a bit of grain of salt. In fact, one person who worked on Escape from Planet Earth stated that a big reason for the crazy production and the never-ending rewrites was because Tony Leach was really bad at his job, both as a writer and director. But even when the Weinstein Company was tagged with a very pricey lawsuit, it ain't gonna stop them from making the movie. A few months later, not only did they form a cast for the picture, but have even found a new director. The film collected a prominent line of actors, including Rob Corddry, Brendan Fraser, Sarah Jessica Parker, James Gandolfini, who would later not be in the film, and Craig Robinson, and even brought in some previous suggestions like Jessica Alba and later William Shatner. But they would end up playing the villain roles like Alba as Lena Thackelman and William Shatner as General Shanker. As for Tony's new replacement, the Weinsteins brought on board story artist Cal Brunker, who previously worked on Blue Sky Studios and Illumination Entertainment for his directorial debut, along with writing a new script with Bob Barlin. Following afterwards, the production was actually going smoothly, or I presume, because there's nothing in my research that explained a lot about what happened during Cal's time with the feature. But the film was finally completed and released on February 15th, 2013. After all these years of bringing these aliens onto the big screen, the movie turned out to be... I mean, it did get some decent reviews. The critics seemed to like the animation, but for the most part, it's nothing more but a forgettably mediocre at best kid distractor. As for the box office, that too had a result. On a reported budget of $40 million, the film managed to earn $57 million domestically and a worldwide total of $74.6 million. But now with the movie release and it did its job, there was only one question remaining. Whatever happened to that lawsuit? I mean, I can't just bring up a $50 million lawsuit and then just walk away, right? Well, there is a conclusion, but no real winners. Coincidentally, around the same time as the release of the movie on February 2013, the judge first let go of JTM, as they have legally done nothing wrong in the case. Leach and Innerfeld then decided to withdraw their claim about the $500,000 hush money for the 2011 Oscars, as the judge stated that it happened in light of the Weinstein Company's apparent decision not to recoup that payment in this action. A few days later, both plaintiffs and defendants ultimately agreed to dismiss the case with prejudice, leaving both sides to pay for their own legal fees. The one thing that the Weinsteins agreed to do as payment after the lawsuit was to give additional credit that the film was based on an original screenplay by Corey Edwards and Tony Leach. And that concludes the story of Escape from Planet Earth. There's really nothing to explain what happened with the movie afterwards. Its legacy since its release now resides in that pit of obscurity known as the bargain bin, where the only impact it can make is being some forgotten forgettable at best kids flick you'd get on DVD for like $5 or less. Overall, Escape from Planet Earth is the true definition of a hopeless movie. Not only because the film itself lacks anything that would resemble either quality or substance, but also because of the years that was put into making this mess was an entirely hopeless procedure. Under normal circumstances, people would immediately recognize the red flags that something was going terribly wrong and would either take action to fix the problem or abandon ship and move on to try something new. However, the only reason why nobody had done anything to stop this was because everyone that was in charge either had no idea or no care about how to make this feature. There was a film company that was purely clueless on how the animation process works, an animation studio that was sucking up the film's budget, even when the script wasn't ready for it, and a bunch of creative leaves that were a little full of themselves to realize that they don't know what they're doing, resulting the production to become completely out of control with at least 17 rewrites to the script, millions of dollars thrown away for nothing, a never-ending clash between the creatives and the executives, and a botched $50 million lawsuit. And all this for what? Some bland animated kids movie that plays too safe to be either memorable or even good, with no legacy of its own that quickly fell into obscurity, filled with gags that are now uncomfortably outdated.
You think humans can build this stuff? I don't think so. Who do you think invented the internet? Cell phone, computer animation.
It's enough that I have to talk about Harvey Weinstein in this. One Hollywood creep at a time, please. Since then, the people who worked on the movie have moved on to other projects and building their own business. Except for the Weinstein Company for obvious reasons. But their experience with Escape from Planet Earth serves as a cautionary tale of when it's best to let go. If the ones with the most power can't do anything to solve the issue, then get out while you still can before the situation gets worse. This may sound rather harsh, but this is one of those movies that would be better if it didn't exist. Not necessarily because it sucks, but it would have been for the best for everyone to not go through the years of torture and waste all that resource. For a movie called Escape from Planet Earth, there is one key word in it that could have been the solution to all the film's problems: escape.
Feels good, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, feels great.